Recorded Books presents an unabridged recording of Now and Forever by Ray Bradbury, narrated by Paul Hecht and directed by Aaron Moon. This book is copyrighted 2007 by Ray Bradbury. This recording is copyrighted 2008 by Recorded Books. A journalist bearing terrible news leaps from a still-moving train into a small town of wonderful, impossible secrets. The doomed crew of a starship follows their blind, mad captain on a quest into deepest space to joust with destiny, eternity, and God himself. These two never-before-published novellas are each distinctly different, and yet each distinctly Bradbury. Now and Forever begins with Somewhere a Band is Playing.
Somewhere. Some stories, be they short stories, novellas, or novels, you may realize are written as a result of a single, immediate, clear impulse. Others ricochet off various events over a lifetime and come together much later to make a whole. When I was 6 years old, my father, who had an urge to travel, took our family by train to Tucson, Arizona for a year, where we lived in a burgeoning environment. For me, it was exhilarating. The town was very small and it was still growing. There's nothing more exciting than to be part of the evolution of a place. I felt a sense of freedom there, and I made many wonderful friends. A year later, we moved back to Waukegan, Illinois, where I'd been born and spent the first years of my life. But we returned to Tucson when I was 12, and this time I experienced an even greater sense of exhilaration because we lived out on the edge of town, and I walked to school every day, through the desert, past all the fantastic varieties of cacti, encountering lizards, spiders, and on occasion snakes on my way to 7th grade. That was the year I began to write. Then, much later, when I lived in Ireland for almost a year, writing the screenplay of Moby Dick for John Huston, I encountered the works of Stephen Leacock, the Canadian humorist. Among them was a charming little book titled Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town. I was so taken with the book that I tried to get MGM to make a motion picture of it. I typed up a few preliminary pages to show the studio how I envisioned the book as a film. When MGM's interest failed, I was left with the beginning of a screenplay that had the feeling of a small town. But at the same time, I couldn't help but remember the Tucson I had known and loved when I was 6 and when I was 12, and began to write my own screenplay and short story about a town somewhere in the desert. During the same years, I kept encountering Katharine Hepburn, either in person or on the screen, and I was terribly attracted by the fact that she remained so youthful in appearance through the years. Sometime in 1956, when she was in her late 40s, she made the film Summertime. This caused me, somehow, to put her at the center of a story for which I had no title yet, but Somewhere a Band is Playing was obviously evolving. Some 30 years ago, I saw a film called The Wind and the Lion starring Sean Connery and with a fabulous score by Jerry Goldsmith. I was so taken with the score that I sat down, played it, and wrote a long poem based on the enchanting music. This became another element of Somewhere a Band is Playing, as I progressed through the beginnings of a story which I hadn't yet fully comprehended, but it seemed as if finally all the elements were coming together. The year I spent in Tucson, age 6, the year I spent there when I was 12, the various encounters with Katharine Hepburn, including her magical appearance in Summertime, and my long poem based on the score of The Wind and the Lion. All of these ran together and inspired me to begin a long prologue to the novella that ultimately followed. Today, looking back, I realize how fortunate I am to have collected such elements, to have held them ready, and then put them together to make this final product. Somewhere a Band is Playing. I've been fortunate to have many helpers along the way. One of those, in the case of this